Hey, good morning, FCF. We are starting a new series of teaching moments, and we're going to be dealing with a subject that is a little peculiar, but it's about painful memories. Let's be realistic. Every human being that lives long enough on this earth collects a few. Now, I want to start, though, by reading a verse from the book of Isaiah that I hope will be a great encouragement to all of us. In Isaiah chapter 65, verse 17, the Lord is speaking, and he says, "Behold, I will create new heavens and a new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in what I will create." So, behold, I'll create new heavens and new earth. The former things will not be remembered, nor will they come to mind. This means that ultimately when God creates the new heavens and the new earth, and we read about this again in the book of Revelation chapter 21, that whatever painful memories we have, they will be gone. They will go away. Now, whether this is a product of time or whether it's an instantaneous thing, the Scripture doesn't say. I tend to think it's going to be a natural process of time because, I haven't lived very long, but there are some painful memories that I had from earlier years that now are almost non-existent in just my short lifetime. So imagine if you lived a couple hundred years or a couple thousand years, the memories would go. But anyway, it's God's assurance, these painful memories that perhaps some of us are still suffering with now, and they do play a role now, but they will not be with us forever. Okay, so that in mind, I want to start this series with a scripture way back in Genesis, and tell you a little bit of story. We're in Genesis chapter 41, and the story really starts in Genesis 37, where Joseph, this wonderful young man, totally devoted to God, he is sold into slavery by his brothers who were jealous of him. And so at age 17, for the next 13 years of his life, Joseph would be in slavery. He would be thrown in jail under false accusations, and yet he just stayed faithful to God and completely a servant to whoever he was around. During his time in prison, the Pharaoh became angry at his baker and his cupbearer, and he put them into prison, and they were about to be executed potentially. They had dreams. Joseph realized they were supernatural dreams, and he gave them the interpretation of the dream. The interpretation was the baker would be executed, but the cupbearer would be restored to Pharaoh, and Joseph pleaded with him. He said, "When you're restored, remember me. I have done nothing to deserve jail." So that's the background. Let me read you now. Genesis, and I'm reading in chapter 41. It says, "When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream." Now the 2 full years is after Joseph had interpreted the cupbearer's dream, and he had been returned to Pharaoh. So 2 full years, he forgot Joseph totally. He never mentioned Joseph to Pharaoh. Now I'm going to drop you down to verse 9. "Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, 'Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And the things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was hanged. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he quickly brought him from the dungeon." Now, it started out by the cupbearer. I'm going to repeat that, verse 9. "The chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, 'Today I am reminded of my shortcomings.'" Now, I think it was two things he was reminded of. He was reminded that there was a time he was on the outs with Pharaoh himself, and he also was reminded how terribly he had forgotten Joseph. By the way, if you read Joseph's amazing story, he was brought from that day on into Pharaoh's court and put in charge of all of Egypt. Only Pharaoh himself was of more authority than Joseph. So the 13 years of agony for Joseph ended, and he became, the chief of all of Egypt at that point. But for the cupbearer, the memory was one that it triggered him to do the right thing then. Now, let's consider some things in our own behalf. Perhaps some of us have some painful memories we so wish we could go back in time and erase those things. We so wish we had not done what we did, or perhaps we wish we would have done something that we did not do. But we can't change. We can't time travel in that regard. But what we can do is we can let those things teach us. We can let those things incentivize us. And I believe that's what we have with the cupbearer here, is that he was saddened by his selfishness, his neglect, but at least it prompted him to give to a man that deserved the credit that was due him, now being in this case Joseph. So as we close out today and we start on this journey of processing painful memories, perhaps you and I can think of a painful memory that we have that God has allowed to linger in our memory so that it will prompt us to do better with opportunities that come across our path in the future. Blessings to you, and hope this series of talks will be enjoyable and meaningful.